Give shekels now, please. Give shekels now, please. I can't.
OBS die on you?
OBS died. I can't tell if we're live or not.
Says we're live.
It says we're live. It says green over green. I believe
Yay.
my internet company farts.
Probably. They chose now to do their fucking weekly maintenance.
Which tech priest is drunk on high quality oil? The tech priest at Cable One Internet. They are some shitty bastards.
Yep.
But we're back. We're back.
Yay.
Where's your 40 bats? Oh, damn.
I eated it.
I ate it.
Yeah.
I ate it a cookie, but I forgot it did.
Yay. Where's my fucking notes at? There's my fucking notes. Okay.
So what you got next? We hit the ice Poseidon a little bit.
Okay. We'll fucking skip the politics. I don't give a shit about the politics.
Which politics? Come on.
The fucking congressional seat for Paul Ryan.
Yeah, you know.
It's fucking boring. The Kumite getting a hate speech strike. How about that shit?
That was rough.
Yeah, like a literal fucking hate speech strike. I'm like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's on Andy Worski's channel. And then also JF is still a faggot. A Frenchie faggot, so. I don't remember why I wrote that note down, but I did. Oh. That's because, the night before fucking Worski had a couple of black dudes on his stream, and then they weren't informed about internet culture.
Oh, yeah. Kayla
so they were
Kayla thinks Nayland is anything but boring. Well, you know.
Okay, you wanna talk about Nayland? You wanna talk about Nayland?
You give me your take. Give me your take.
Okay.
Pretend I'm completely uninformed. I want your take.
Okay, so this dude is got into some hot water in December, from what I read on him when I researched him. He posted a bunch of tweets on Twitter in December, talking about reading some kind of anti-Semitic book on Jews. Made a couple other tweets about that were anti-Semitic in nature, and is latched onto the alt-right platform, but still maintaining Republican affiliation.
Okay.
So he's now running for the soon-to-be vacant congressional seat of Paul Ryan in Wisconsin, in the big district, District 1. Ralph had somebody on his stream the other night that was claiming to be a spokesperson for the campaign. I don't believe the guy was actually a spokesperson, because this would be the worst possible fucking spokesperson that you could ever have. Right?
Okay. And why was he the worst possible spokesperson?
Because he kept saying Nayland got red-pilled in December. And kept claiming that this was a good thing that he made those anti-Semitic posts and all this and that shit. And I'm like, no. Even Steve Bannon, the former fucking...
I love how Kayla's calling everything out for you. Culture of Critique was the book.
Oh, Culture of Critique. Well, I didn't fucking, really get that deep into it. Because this is, I didn't know who the fuck this guy was, or what the fuck this shit was all about. I've only been into the whole internet blood sports thing for since mid-April.
You know what, Kayla? But, if you want In to explain Nayland more to Twisted and give your side of Nayland, hit me up in Discord. I will give it to you.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
100%. I will let you in here to give your voice on this, because you're a well-educated person.
Yeah.
But go ahead, give it to me your layman's definition to the uninformed. I want this to be the layman to the uninformed, and then Kayla, if she comes in, will be the more structured
yeah, as somebody who had no fucking clue who this guy was, and it's just yeah. So I'm learning who this guy is and whatnot. And even Steve Bannon was like, distancing himself from this person. It's like, nah, bruh, nah, you're fucking, you're pariah. And like everybody's distancing themselves from this guy. So I'm looking up like news articles and shit on this race, and I don't. The fucking spokesperson was claiming that Nayland actually has a shot, and I'm thinking, and I'm reading all these news articles, and like he's not even a front runner in the primary, so he's not gonna get anywhere near that seat whatsoever because of his political views that he just now revealed in December. And the dude kept saying he got red pilled. I don't think he got red pilled. I think he's just now letting everybody know how much of a dickbag he is.
Okay.
That's my point of view on it.
I mean, that's one way to look. That's one look. I don't know much about Nayland, frankly, so I'm interested to see your side. So, I mean, your former party used to be the patron saints of racism.
Yeah, I mean
they still are. I mean, the Democratic
technically,
Party
yes, they just do it in different methods now by telling people that they can't do any better for themselves than minimum wage jobs or welfare and shit like that. They just do it in sleazier ways than they used to, than the outright, the KKK stuff and the Jim Crow laws and opposing the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Less obvious ways.
If we could just do away with the political violence portion and just have people say the fuck is on their mind, we'd get a much clearer sense of where this country wants to go and where it's currently going and how to steer differently.
Well, I mean, if my party would stop trying to fucking sow the seeds of racial warring, that would be fucking great too. I think the DNC needs to be dissolved. That's where this needs to go. The party is so fucked up beyond belief at this point, it just needs to not exist.
I love how just militantly anti-DNC you are.
Well, the party leadership has they've fucked everything up so far beyond fixable that there's no point in continuing the party. They've rigged elections. I don't know how far back they've been rigging elections. They might have been doing this since I even started fucking voting, which would be, why the fucking recount bullshit in 2000 happened, because Gore was all like, well, I know I fucking, rigged the election, so this shouldn't be happening. Bullshit,
Hi, Kayla. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody.
You've got people in the chat who didn't know you from Adam chanting your name.
I saw that before I clicked. Thank you. No, I was just watching your guys' stream, just kind of hanging out, and so I was just posting my thoughts or just little details in the chat. But thank you for the invite.
Not a problem. You know I respect you for how eloquently you put forward your views and how well informed you are on the world around you. So even though we might not agree on everything, which we haven't in the past, we've had discussions, not even heated ones, just counterpointed discussions during the last heel turn when we were on, where we disagreed. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Nayland.
Well, I think that's something that. Sorry, I just my throat. But no, I think that's something that's actually really great, though, is just being able to talk to people that you don't necessarily agree with on everything. But I figure if you talk to someone long enough, you're going to really find some points where you actually do.
Yeah.
And Twisted, I don't think we've met before. So, hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. So, on this Nayland thing. All right. So, how do I write? Okay. So, Nayland, he used to, he's owned multiple companies in the past. He's an engineer by trade, has he's got multiple patents under his name. So, he seems to be a guy that's not an idiot, right? He's been able to manage people in the past, and just in terms of, right, if you actually have to do business overseas, things like that, normally you understand how to talk to people. So I just wanted to kind of set that a little bit as a premise. Now, the thing is,
So
you know,
he's an energizing speaker, like Trump is. He knows how to energize his audience that he's shooting for.
Well, I think he understands his audience. He he was right. He wasn't like some very wealthy guy or anything like that in the beginning. He worked hard. He made his money. He worked harder, made more money, and so the thing though, and I didn't watch the Ralph Retort stream with Paul Nealon's spokesman, if you want to call him that, right? But Twisted, what I did hear you say was this guy kept saying the word red pilled, right? Nealon was red pilled. He was red pilled in December. Well, I just want to give the listeners kind of an idea of the red pill process, right? Pardon me. So, right, there's a set of steps to becoming red pilled, right? You and even if it's just a 2-step type of thing, where it's always race realism and then the JQ, right? Well, for whatever, and there's doses that you take.
What's the JQ? Because I don't, I keep hearing that term, but I don't understand it.
Okay. Yeah. So the JQ is it's short for the Jewish question, and it is something where it's how do I say? It's pointing out, right, or it's the knowledge that many industries and whether it's media, whether it is academia, whether it is finance, that Jews disproportionately make up the high-ranking people within those groups. And even going back, if you want to say the, communism or the Bolshevik Revolution, I've heard 80% of the people in the revolution were of Jewish descent. It's kind of just being able to say, like, because Jewish people, right, Ashkenazi primarily, that's normally what we talk about. And Ashkenazis they're pretty much like, I guess, genetically speaking, they fall right in the middle between Middle Eastern and European, right? Mm-hmm. And Ashkenazis, they have a high IQ of 115. So they've got
We're talking highest averages here. We're talking averages
exactly.
Here.
They've got the highest average IQ. And, so there's a reason why they would be in very high-ranking positions, right? They'd be, kind of placed in the powers that be. But when you actually look at kind of who these people are, what they normally push, they're normally very open borders. They're very multiculturalism, diversity, lots of usury when it comes to the way that they choose to do banking, right? It's very, high interest types of things like that. And I'm sorry for anyone listening if I'm not explaining this not correctly, but you know what I mean. Just if I'm explaining it poorly, I do apologize. But at the same time, it's simply being able to point out that these people work for the best interest of Jews, primarily, right? They are a tribal group. They have in-group preferences. They disproportionately make up these positions, and they have they have a place in history of working against the host populations in the countries that they live. So that's kind of the JQ, and that's why when Nealon, the anti-Semitic remarks that he was making, he was he thought I'm sure, and I can't speak for him fully, but I really think that he just thought he's pointing out a pattern, right? This started with, he posted a book that he was reading, Culture of Critique by Kevin MacDonald, and that book cites the group evolutionary strategy of Jewish people. And so he posts a picture of this book, and he starts to get all of this backlash. He, and he starts to notice the people that disproportionately make up the amount of backlash that he's having. They're not trying to identify themselves as Jews, but a large amount were Jewish people. And to the point where they claim that they're white, but then when it's disadvantageous to be white, they are Jewish. It's kind of like this shapeshifter thing. So he kind of kept studying this. He kept going down the road. And, that's kind of where he's been at. But the thing is with red pilling, you can absolutely overdose on red pills. Right? Mm-hmm. The red pilling process should be done, 1, slowly, and 2, not in the public eye.
So you're saying it's political LSD?
It really, if you don't
do it in
right,
public.
Someone's like, not there to guide you. You're going to totally go Nealon. that's how I see it, right? Nealon publicly he overdosed on red pills.
I'll say
He
this:
went too fast, too far.
I'm very pink pilled. I'm not red pilled. I recognize that race realism has its points, and currently there's probably a disproportionate level of Ashkenazi people in power structures, sure, but I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is cultural nepotism, and it's always going to be there. Well, it doesn't matter who's in power, because somebody will always be disenfranchised. I think that the problem is just the nepotism and the corruption, and that's what you need to attack. But that's personal view.
I think a lot of people, maybe that are within white advocacy groups, and I'm going to, pro-white types of groups, they do see that whites, to some extent, right, we're not able to express in-group preferences. Sorry for the noise.
No.
We're not able to express in-group preferences. We're not able to be nepotistic. Multiculturalism and diversity, which, let's face it, at its core is anti-white, right? Because it's about importing non-whites into white countries.
I would say that it's anti-establishment. It's anti homeland identity. Can we agree on that point at least?
Yeah, anti-nationalism, right? I mean, anti-identity, absolutely.
It's about homogenizing things. It might not be pointedly anti-white because there's other countries that's happening too, who might not consider themselves white. Because there's a push for it in the Asian countries as well. Trying to water down that identity. There's pressure there. There is.
They've been able to resist it, but
that's a choice in government. That's
Yeah, I mean they've in a way they've kind of just been walled off from the rest of the world. And so that's been, to a certain extent, what has saved them. Because, and you see this with Japan being the best example, right? They're about, 98% Japanese. It's a super, super majority. It's a homogenous country. The crime levels are ridiculously low. They're,
Now, I will say this, because I've been in Japan and in the Southeast Asian area. The crime levels are low in sort of the civilized zones, but the closer you go to port cities or out in the boonies, the more disproportionate they are because of delinquency.
Oh, okay. See, now that I didn't know.
There's a cultural component on their crime rates where when they get crowded together, they will act more socially appropriate, I guess you could say. But the more disparate and dispersed the population goes, the less, I guess they probably, because I don't want to speak empirically, but the less they probably see themselves as a group and see themselves as people out for themselves. So you get the higher crime rates in those areas.
That's interesting. I'm going to look that up too when I'm done here. But so what was I saying? Okay, so back to Nealon. So Nealon, right? He's still technically he's running against Paul Ryan, and I mean he started running when he didn't know that Paul Ryan was going to give up his seat. Right? We found out earlier this year, and I don't think Nealon is going to win. I think it's an absolute shame because I get it. He's not necessarily handling the public spotlight as well as a lot of people within, whether you'd call it the alt-right or nationalist movements, would want him to, right? There's kind of this saying that we have where it's hide your power level, right? Because you can know certain things or you can think certain things, but whether it's appropriate or not to say those things publicly, right? Kind of being able to judge the room, right? And if, right? You don't walk into a Baptist church in the South and start screaming about black people, right? It's kind of that same principle.
Don't have social Tourette's.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. And unfortunately, one of the main side effects of an improper red pilling is social Tourette's.
I'm so glad you've latched on to that.
Yes, it really is, though. You just start speaking out and you're spouting all these statistics and it's oh no, it's not good. You don't want that. But yeah, I mean, I know that the Republican Party, they disassociated themselves from Nealon. Steve Bannon was he was one of the first. But, I mean, Steve Bannon, when he was with Trump, right, that "Make America Great Again" type of.
Well,
I don't want to call
Bannon
it.
got called a white supremacist a lot.
Oh yeah, but I mean, he's not. The thing is though, right? If you're a politician in America, at least these days, it really seems like if you say, "I want to care about the people here first," right? And it doesn't matter if, pardon me, it doesn't matter if they're white, they're black, if they're here, right? If they're here in America,
it automatically makes you a white supremacist because that's
exactly
how the fucking DNC works.
Yeah, I mean, well, the DNC, the Republican Party, they didn't like him. I mean, we give so much money to all of these countries, right? I mean, we just dole out the welfare to any nation that wants it or needs it, whether it's Israel or whether it's Africa. And then at the same time, right, Democrats, and this is oversimplified, I know, but Democrats want immigration into the U.S. so that they can get more votes, right? The voting patterns for non-whites and especially immigrants, it's heavily towards the larger state, the Democrat side. And then
that's actually pretty accurate. The Democrats have been known to like bust people in, and especially in fucking California where they want to let illegal immigrants vote. But the biggest thing about voting is that it's supposed to be for citizens, not non-citizens. And I'm like, why do you want to let illegals vote when they're not citizens?
I think one of the problems that's holding our country back, and we've way strayed into politics because of this topic, and I love it. I love the tangent because it was our last topic for the day, anyways. So it's good to go this way. But
we're good at getting off on tangents, by the way. That's one of my specialties.
I think you do have a comfy tangent a time or two.
I have a comfy tangent feel to me.
But I think the whole thing about what's America's doing right now is we're on a downturn because if you look historically, America grows in fits and spurts of expansionist interventionalism, followed by a reining in and isolationism before the next spurt forward. Right? Kind of like how an amoeba moves with its pseudopod. It will throw out, compress, throw out, compress. And that's the way it moves forward. Well, we've been throwing out for so long without compressing and being isolationist and non-interventionalist since World War II. We've been on this interventionalist swing, and we have not allowed ourselves to compress again. We're so strung out that every little thing will start to fraction and fray us. And that's where we're at now.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, if you stretch a cloth too thin, right, the chance of the cloth ripping, it increases. You keep stretching, and it will keep increasing. And that definitely seems to be where we're at. That was a perfect way of actually saying it. And I mean, even if, I wanted to step outside. I wanted to get some fresh air, but
it's coming through a little bit, but not horrible.
Oh, okay. I try to hold the mic close to my chest. But, and even if you kind of look at it, we've still seen those little spurts since World War II, right? We had World War II, we went out. And then during the 50s, we had a decent time, right? During the 60s, it was a little too comfy, a little too degenerate, maybe. And, in the late 60s, early 70s, we go back out. We're in Nam. And then the 80s and the 90s, we were a little more reined in. And then in 2000s, we went back out. And we haven't come back in.
But it wasn't enough of in on any of those because you still had Korea where we went out in the 50s, and we were still doing interventionalist dictatorships that came back to bite us in the ass later in the 70s and 80s.
And we were still technically in Vietnam in the early 60s.
And in the 90s, we weren't pulling back in because we were in Somalia getting our asses handed to us, kowtowing to the UN. So,
and then also Croatia.
I was trying to be so nice to the U.S. for 1 second. I was trying not to be cynical, and then you guys just came out and you're like, "Nope, there," and I'm like, right. You guys are right.
We may not always be stretching in the same direction, but we keep stretching, and eventually the cloth is going to snap.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And I mean, that's one of the things that Trump did run on, right? He said we're going to. We're not going to be involved in anything we shouldn't be involved in or anything we're not clearly fighting in. And anything we are clearly fighting in, we're going to start actually fighting.
We're going to fight, we're going to win, and it's going to benefit us. I like that message. It's a good message. Mattis is a good Mattis is a good projection of that message militarily.
Yep, patron saint of chaos.
Not a chaos. And I mean, he's the patron saint of intervention only for America.
Yeah. In the last Syria strikes, right? He tried to call back any strike or prevent any strike that he didn't find to be necessary anytime he had the opportunity to do so. And if you're looking at the other people in Trump's cabinet, especially with the addition of Bolton, right? That's not how the rest of them operate. So he is kind of like this little dove flying in a whole little, not pack, gosh, Kayla, flock of hawks, even though hawks don't fly in flocks. You get it. You get my point.
Yeah, I get that. He is the grouser amongst the predators. He's the grazer. He only wants what's best for him. You know what? There we go. He's not the grazer. He's the omnivore. He'll do what he needs to do. He'll make the compromises, but he's always going to look out for himself. He's not going to just constantly hunt.
Yeah. Well, and that's why so many people were so disappointed to see Bolton brought in. That was, we're talking about all these colored pills, right? That was one of the big black pills for people in our, kind of, I guess you'd say on the right. We were really, really not happy with Bolton.
On the north right?
Well, what's with Bolton? Because I'm a lifelong moderate Democrat, so I don't know a whole lot about the Republican side of shit.
Okay, well, hold on. I'm grabbing my coffee so that I don't sound like I'm half asleep, even though I still can. Well, okay, so I'd say Bolton is the epitome of a he still, to this day, thinks that invading Iraq, the invasion into Iraq was a good idea. He thinks that we need to conflict with Iran. Some people would say that he's a very Zionist. He's very make Israel great again. And he is not necessarily... his thoughts on Korea, he thinks that intervention over diplomacy every single time. And so that's something that we just don't simply agree with. He was in, what office was he in? Let me see.
Is he national security?
What's that?
Is he someone that's favored by the Republican Party leadership?
I'd say probably, yeah. Yeah, I think
okay, so then that's why he's on the cabinet. Okay.
Yeah, he's NSA. He's National Security Advisor.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah.
So what I've been noticing with a lot of Trump's appointments to his cabinet is that half of them are ones that he has personally. The other half are to appease the Republican leadership.
Yeah, I think that's true. Even if you want to just make it pretty broad, the leadership in general. I haven't, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen too many Democrats come out and speak against Bolton being appointed.
Well, probably not, because they like the fact that he's a warmonger.
Right, and
that's going to be ammunition for them later on. So this is something that they like.
Well, I agree, and I think, the left, at least it seemed like it used to kind of tout itself as the anti-war party, and nowadays, I wouldn't say there's any clear, party that is anti-war.
No, there's no party that's actually anti-war, especially with the fucking DNC secretly pushing and supporting fucking violent activists such as Antifa.
Yeah, so. So you said that you were, a moderate Democrat. What, and, I don't, right, kind of the way that the internet's set up, it's very hard to be able to interact with people of a different leaning. What do you think of this whole kind of, in a way, like state, to some extent, right, state-sponsored domestic terrorism that's been going on with Antifa, and the way that the police or the mayors, the governors seem to be giving them free rein?
I don't agree with that at all. The rules apply to everyone. Laws apply to everyone. Absolutely everyone. You cannot bend them because it fucking serves your purposes or because you didn't like how a fucking election went. We have these laws for a purpose. We have the fucking electoral college set up for a purpose. Everything is set up for it as for a purpose and you need to use that. So if you don't like how an election went, wait until the next election cycle.
Right.
That's how it fucking works in our country. That's how it's worked for 240 some odd years. And to fucking try and throw all that shit out the window because you want to be a butthurt little fucking child, that's stupid.
Clipping Twisted.
Sorry. That's completely stupid.
No, I do.
And that it pisses me off that my party went that direction.
Well, it just seems like, it's something where I get that, there's legislative elections every 2 years, right? And with the executive, it's every 4. But the thing is, it seems that their time horizon, right? Their ability to delay gratification for a bigger win in, the distant future or, near future, whatever you get it. It seems like they have just, like you said, they've completely thrown that aside. They want to get everything that they can now, and they're pushing it so far that's what's making people wake up and actually start to even switch parties or just simply not align with them anymore. Yeah,
I mean, they started this bullshit. Let's just be honest. A lot of the rumblings of this started in 2015 or late 2014, early 2015 with the Gamergate shit.
Oh, don't
and then that got
that
people.
Up. Jesus God.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. That's technically when I got red pilled.
Ah.
I don't.
That's probably when a lot of people got red pilled.
You're misusing red pilled. That's when you switched sides. That's when you started leaning right. Don't say you were red pilled. You didn't follow identitarian politics. You didn't.
I mean, this is true.
You didn't start looking into race realism back then. You're misusing red pill now. Kayla defined
it's when
that
I
very
woke
clearly
up
for
and
you.
saw the bad shit my party was doing. How about that?
Well, how about this? When you say that you were like red pill during the Gamergate time, and I'm using this word, right? I get it, Top Kick, but I'm using the word she used.
Yeah.
Would you say that was it a political thing, a cultural thing, or was it both?
Both.
I think she went moderately conservative for the same reason I went harder conservative and harder authoritarian over the years. It's the hypocrisy got to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's the mainstream media was supposed to be like ethical and shit like that. It was supposed to be,
unbiased,
and then it proved that it got proven that they weren't, that they were colluding with everything, and it turned into a big propaganda state. And I'm like, that's not cool. That's not how you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be activists. You're supposed to be, the fourth estate, keeping everything in check and being watchdog group. And then it wasn't. And I'm like, the fuck? And then my own party fucking basically supporting women that were lying about shit and trying to ruin people's lives. That's not cool either. The fucking rules apply to everyone.
Well, that's the thing. I think and this is probably, for me, one of the biggest hypocrisies, right, is that they are the ones that have, in a way, introduced this victim hierarchy, right, where, right, with women, you have to listen and believe. With immigrants, you have to be, you have to be acting like a humanitarian 24/7 and give your left arm if they need it. And you go down the line, right, with blacks and then the LGBTQ AAIP plus sign. I'd like to say the whole thing. Well, that's the whole thing that I know so far.
Can we just call them the QWERTY pluses? Because they'll just pick every letter until you tell them to stop.
QWERTY pluses, I like that. Okay, so with the QWERTY pluses and kind of all these people and at all these different points when it became advantageous for the powers that be, right, they would rearrange the hierarchy. Right, and they could be exploitative of the trans. Then the trans made it to the top of the list with the blacks. Then they made, and eventually you can't kind of, and so that's what they did. But they didn't even think, and this goes back to them just simply not thinking in the long term whatsoever. you can't kind of keep telling everyone that they're the biggest victim, that they're at the top of the list, you know, because there will be a point where you no longer really need them. You'll put someone else up there, and they're going to start cannibalizing themselves. You're
Yeah,
seeing
which
that
they have been doing.
right? You're seeing that with the women's march, and first they needed all of these white women to come in and really, I mean, be the numbers for these marches and these movements.
Mm-hmm.
But then next thing you know, you've got the black women coming in and saying, no, you know what, white women, we don't, your tears are manipulative and we don't need you. You're actually part of the problem, right? Like you're part of those powers that be, right? You're the status quo that we're fighting against. But thanks for all the legwork you did, you know, like, you know, so it is something that we are kind of seeing. And I don't know. I mean, I think that you can't, you know, it's just a society can't operate like that, right? You said that the laws apply to everyone, but the problem is, you know, what we're seeing is
that the
that
laws aren't applying to everyone. People are applying them willy fucking nilly, and that's not what the country was founded on.
oh, exactly. And if you're at that top of the, you know, and the people know this, right? If you're at the top of that, you know, victim hierarchy, then the laws really, really don't apply to you. And if anything, you can even turn it around and get the other people in trouble. And so this is something that, right, no society can be built or sustained off of this whatsoever. And, you know, it's just, I think a lot of people, we want to get back to this, like kind of the natural order, right? We want to get back to a balance where we don't agree with each other, but we're not trying to, you know, always, I guess you'd say, systematically try to climb on top of each other or screw someone else. Like, it's natural for us to do that, but
or shout people down, having an actual fucking discussion instead of just shouting people down and telling them to shut the fuck up because they're not this or they're not that. There's this thing called fucking empathy, where basically you don't have to have actually experienced something in order to sympathize with someone who has experienced it. And I think that's something that a lot of people have forgotten about, especially in the last 20 years or so. And that's where this bullshit culture of victimization comes from. And it's like, it's retarded. And I don't know why people keep clinging to this. And a lot of these people come off as needing actual mental fucking help. You know, like seeing a psychiatrist or something and getting put on medication. And I don't know if it's maybe just me seeing a bunch of fucking psychos everywhere or not. But I'm like, there is a lot of people that need a lot of fucking professional help.
Well, I absolutely agree. I really think that there are people that really need mental help, right? And the thing, you know, and for me, it's kind of like two things. There are people that just, like, you know, psychologically speaking, they already need mental help, right? And then we've lost a sense of community, right? And kind of, for me, I think that when an individual has a sense of community, right, they are attached to something larger than themselves. They play a role. They serve a purpose, and it's an anchor, right? It kind of keeps you, I guess, like well adjusted socially speaking, and it gives you your place, because everybody needs, you know, they need to have a place where they fit in, a place where they operate within, and for those people, right, the sense of community is gone, and then you've got these people coming in and offering them this sense of community that is based off like illness, right? Yeah. I mean, you know, whether it's almost Munchausen's, or whether it's Munchausen's by proxy, or whether, you know, it's gender dysphoria or dysmorphia, you've got all these things, and they're teaming these lost people up with people that actually have a mental disorder that is now, it's being glorified, right? You're not able to talk about it and offer them help, or else you're a bigot.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It's a fashion statement at this point.
Yes, it is.
And people that actually suffer from like clinical depression can't really openly talk about it in a legitimate way because it's just a fucking fashion statement to some people. Like, I have actual goddamn clinical depression. I go to a therapist for it. I take medication for it.
But you know what you don't do? Bring it up as a fucking crutch all the time.
Exactly.
When there's a point of discussion, it's a data point for you, and then you move on.
Exactly. It's
Well,
just,
do you-
it's,
sorry, go ahead.
I have this, and then it's taken care of. All right, moving on.
Well, since you guys were talking about the Ralph retort, do you guys, well, I swear to God, I don't know his name other than Chaggett. Do you guys know Chaggett?
His real name is Dylan, but he made up a stupid rapper name called Dylon, which is literally Dielawn.
Yes, that's who.
By the way, completely stolen from fucking Chappelle.
Oh.
Well, it's not like the fucker is that original.
Chappelle's show had a skit where there was a guy named Dylon, Dylan, but instead of Dylan, it was Dylon, and he is #1 rapper in all of world. He spits hot fire. If you ask him to name top 5 rappers in world, they are in this order: Dylon.
That's right.
And that was the whole skit, was him just repeating his own name over and over to every question. So the fucking meth head autist couldn't even steal a good thing. He had to steal a fucking repetitive sketch comedy act.
Yeah, supposedly, like, that guy hasn't actually been officially diagnosed with autism, so I don't know.
That's why I was bringing him up, right? Because, you guys, we were just talking about people that cite an illness, right, over and over. That's their excuse for everything that they do. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why you can't totally attack them. You can't really ask them about their illness. And I spoke to this guy Dylon last night. And what was really interesting, because I tried to ask him as much as I could in the time that I had, kind of, okay, well, what type of autism do you have? He just said he had high functioning autism, right? And yet throughout the conversation, pardon me, with me and with other people, he was being sarcastic. He was able to recognize sarcasm. He was, claiming to be very self-aware. So he's kind of claiming these things, right? But then anytime he'd be put in a spot where he has to explain himself, it's just, oh, my autism.
Yeah.
And
please be
I
patient.
thought it was really interesting. I'm just throwing things out there.
I mean, part of that might be because of his father. His father apparently wrote a book.
I saw something
about raising an autistic child. And supposedly his father didn't bother to get the diagnosis either. He just wrote a book to get fame off his kid.
To get Jenny McCarthy bucks?
Yeah.
Oof. Well, that would be the only thing that would make sense, right? Is that this kid is simply just repeating what he's heard for decades.
Yeah, so I think he just got told he had autism, and then...
To be fair, I don't know if he's intelligent enough to not know he doesn't have autism,
I don't think he's intelligent at all. I mean, he fucking lives in California. And he's a meth head. He killed a lot of brain cells, dude.
Oh my God, this guy was a riot. He was so weird.
I'm just saying my lawn might have more processing power than he does.
I think so, right? Especially if you add a little fertilizer to it.
Yeah, add a little fertilizer, a couple little, metallic shavings and some water. You've got way more conductive power than all of his brain pathways.
Damn.
That's what it seemed like. It was so weird. But that's one of the things that I really hate, because people that really have a problem, pardon me, whether it's physical, whether it's psychological or anything like that, right? They'll mention it in passing. If it comes up in conversation, they'll mention it, but it's not this card that they repeatedly pull out of their back pocket to be like, nope, you can't say anything more, right? Look at here, I've got this card. I've got a problem.
Fucking disability / protected class is the wild draw 4 of political Uno.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something that I've noticed with those that may or may not have actually been diagnosed with Asperger's is that they do actually play that card a lot if they've got for the Asperger's, because I know that in the old Lorcat Mumble we had a guy that constantly used that as an excuse to be an asshole to people.
Well, I don't know if it's taught to them as children. It is kind of like one of those dialogue situations where you've got a kid that's already socially awkward, and they know that if the kid says this, right, they won't, and so it's kind of like this.
Trouble, yeah.
Yeah, they just, they're taught to be like, oh, well, if you ever say something bad, just say that you have Asperger's, you have autism, whatever it is. And they kind of just go, okay. Right? But it's also this encouraging thing for them, because they know they've got that card they can pull.
Yeah.
And so it produces like, kind of this disingenuous dialogue that you can end up having with them.
Yeah, so a lot of that is that when you get diagnosis like that, they're just looking for an excuse to. A lot of parents are doing this too, looking for an excuse to explain their child's bad behavior.
They're not what the problem is. I got to tell you from a parental standpoint. You don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I just had a nephew.
There is a crippling feeling of embarrassment when your child fucks up.
Yeah.
There is a crippling feeling of, I fucked up in not teaching them how not to do this. How do I correct it? And the easy way for these parents is, oh, well, it's autistic. It's not my fault. It's not their fault. It's just the hand they were dealt. Don't blame anybody. You can't. That's how they explain away their embarrassment, is they're saving face for themselves by punishing their child and putting this thing out there like it's their burden for the rest of their lives because their parent was a fucking loser.
Like, fuck up how? Like how does the child fuck up?
Okay, like if you were screaming penis in a grocery store.
Yeah.
I've done this as a child. Now, here's a childhood story from Adam's childhood. When I was 3, I asked what's different between a man and a woman. And
that's a reasonable question.
My parents vowed very early on to never lie to their kids and always be honest. So my parents said, well, there's a couple of very basic differences, but the important one is boys have a penis, girls have a vagina, and you're a boy, so you have a penis. So
Kindergarten cop.
All day, I'm pointing at things. Boys and girls. That's a girl. She has a vagina. That's a boy. Betty has a penis. That's a girl. She's got a vagina somewhere. At the grocery store, at the gas station, in the park. And my parents were like, they did the right thing. They owned it. They're like, yep, we taught him the difference between boys and girls, and he's showing us that he can understand the difference. Today, that's going to be, oh no, he's autistic. He doesn't know not to say that. It's not his problem.
Well, actually, I was just thinking about that, right? How do you think that question is probably answered by a lot of parents these days, right?
There's not any difference. Boys and girls are just the same when it comes down to it. Everybody's equal. There's
also a Z, a zer. You can even call them them. Like, the manipulation of the human language is so, and I'm going to, I'm going to say it's out of whack, right? It's completely, it seems to just be degrading at this rate where, because it's not just simply taking words that already exist and shortening them down, whether it's the way that we write and it's like, oh, I see you, right? And it's just a C and a U, or with Ebonics or with, things like that. But then it's also the creation of these new words that are
non-words.
Yeah. I'm so glad that my sister stopped raising my nephew like that.
Twisted.
What?
We're going to close up the show soon because we've been going on for about 48 minutes, which is about 20 minutes extra from what the show should have been. But we've got Kayla here. So I think it's time to ask her the most autistic question in the world.
Oof.
Okay.
Are you ready for the most autistic question? And Matt's going to be pissed when I say it. Kayla, do you think waterfalls exist?
I think waterfalls exist.
Do you think waterfalls exist?
I'm going to say yes. I think waterfalls exist.
Which part of the water following gravity is the waterfall?
I'd say it's the point in between the high cliff edge and then
But it already moved down the stream just now when we were talking about it. So where's the waterfall now?
But is it really moving vertically?
The water's always moving.
Free falling?
Yes, the water's always
moving. Is it free
falling
down?
Now, see, this is what we're talking about with Zer, because waterfall is the original purpose of this. It's not water falling down a cliff. We gave a word to this thing to create a concept as a physical thing. That's why I brought it up here. Yep. But it is one of the most autistic questions from old school Lord Cat days, which is why the chat is freaking out. Fuck me in that question. But are waterfalls real is the original third gender question. It's
I'm
creating
looking
this.
at the chat and they are freaking out.
They don't like this question. It's not a good question. It's some bad memories. Ask me sometime about double slit experiments in monkeys. I'll piss them off even more. But the important thing is, it's a word that describes an action while being a noun, and that's something that shouldn't be. It is water falling, but it is a waterfall. Because what it really is a river and a cliff. If you were to say the two parts of it, right?
Yeah.
It's a river going over a cliff. It's not a waterfall. You could have easily said, that's where the river comes down the cliff. But because we need to be right, and we as a people need to explain everything so thoroughly, we gave it the name waterfall, which is not a correct statement of what it is.
Well, nouns can be abstract, so.
Well, and technically, I mean, a river would require a riverbed, wouldn't it?
The bed is where the river courses over. It's where the river spreads its deposit of eroded rock. So the bed is always there. The bed travels with the motion of the water.
Yeah, but you know what I mean by riverbed. Not sediment, not particles, right? But an actual solid state.
Well, what you're talking about is actually the lowest level of the water. I am coming up with my own content, Matt. We are explaining how this is the start of this quasi-gendered thing. Because the quasi-gendered thing, we took man and woman, we took river and cliff, and then we added transgenders, which is the waterfall. It is the mixing of both to explain where they meet. We couldn't just say that person's confused or that water is going over the cliff. We said they're a troon and this is a waterfall.
A troon?
We used to say they were confused.
And
then somebody got uppity about it.
A pretend tranny is a troon.
Oh.
Somebody doing it for attention.
I do things every day.
All right, well, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I'd love to have you on for more discussions, Kayla. I love your insight on everything. I love how you can challenge me in Twisted. Is there anything? Is there anything you want to plug to the audience before we sign out for the day?
Sure. Why not? I run a live stream channel. It's BigKatKayla live streams. We're thinking about changing the name, but for now, it is BigKatKayla live streams. And we like to do interview shows, and I guess you'd say it's a pro-white type of live stream channel, but really it's just, we're trying to talk about, possibly bringing back traditional roles of men and women and, maybe bringing a little balance back to the world. But most of all, I would like to thank both of you for having me on. I really do appreciate the invite, and I would like to extend the same invite to both of you. I mean, I know, Adam, you and I are going to be talking next weekend. And we're also going to be bringing your friend on. So either Saturday or Sunday, we will be tweeting it out, everything like that. And Twisted, if you would ever like to come on and discuss the state of the Democrat Party or what you'd maybe like to see the Democrat Party become or return to, I would love to have you on. Anything that, you're really interested in. We'd like to just bring people on to talk about their things. It doesn't have to be pro-white or anything like that.
Okay.
And if you guys have something you want to bring up with Kayla, I put her link for her Twitter in the description, so you guys can hit her up there if you guys have a question for her.
Yeah, and I have an open invite to anyone. If they want to discuss anything in an honest way, we're good.
So thank you guys in the chat for joining us. Thanks, Kayla, for being on the show. We'll see you next week for Top Keck Weekly.
Bye.